Okay, we're being live streamed now.
Where?
You'll, it will be announced here. Here we go. We're going on Facebook and YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Step into the light, step into the love, step into the truth of who you are. Step into the light, step into the love, step into the truth of who you are. Step into the light, step into the love, step into the truth of who you are. Step into the light, step into the love, step into the truth of who you are. Step into the light. You are beautiful just the way you are. Step into the love. You're illuminated by the glory of God's love. Step into the truth. From within your abundance overflows. Our love can change one life. One life can change the world. Step into the light. Step into the love. Step into the truth of who you are. Step into the light, step into the love, step into the truth of who you are. Step into the light, step into the love, step into the truth of who you are. Step into the light, step into the love, step into the truth of who you are. I am the light of the world. You are the light of the world. We are the light of the world. So move with me. Step with me. Step into the light. Step into the love. Step into the truth of who you are. Step into the light. Step into the love. Step into the truth of who you are. Step into the light. Step into the love. Step into the truth of who you are. Step into the light. Step into the love. Step into the truth of who you are. I am the light of the world. You are the light of the world. We are the light of the world. So move with me. Step with me. Step into the light.
Well, good morning, beloveds. It is so wonderful to be present with you on this amazing August 22nd, 2021. We have never lived this day before, and it is absolutely amazing that we have this opportunity to be together. My name is Sunshine Day. I get to be the spiritual director at the Downey Center for Spiritual Living, and we welcome you to our Sunday celebration service, knowing that right where you are, God is. Let's remind ourselves of the truth of who we are and our vision and mission. This way, you know exactly what consciousness you're stepping into. All right? Here's our vision and mission. By valuing and empowering all, we inspire a fulfilling and joyous life. A valorar y potenciar todo, inspiramos una vida plena y alegre. What we know is that all life, all life is the life of God expressing fully and fully. So I just want to open it up for our folks who are joining us on Zoom or on Facebook or on YouTube. When you hear the words by valuing and empowering all, we inspire a fulfilling and joyous life. What does that bring up for you? We have an opportunity right now for someone to share if you are so moved to. If you're on our Facebook or on our YouTube, go ahead and type it into the chat. Let me know what you're thinking and feeling when you hear those words, a valorar y potenciar todo. Inspiramos una vida plena y alegre. Anyone? And it's okay. I know it's a lot to really ingest. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I love it when you're silent. I love it because it gives us an opportunity to really go within and meditate on these words. So continue to meditate on these words as we move forward. It is indeed a spiritual practice to take into contemplation the words of our vision and mission, and just know that right where you are, God is. So this morning, we have a great opportunity to practice, to have a spiritual practice, to engage in spiritual practice. And our practitioner this morning is Jan Hartman. She's going to lead us in a beautiful meditation and then open us up in prayer. Please surrender your hearts and your minds and this time now to our beloved Jan Hartman.
Oh, good morning. Good morning and welcome to Downey Center for Spiritual Living. I'm so grateful to be here today, and I'm so delighted to be able to offer some time for meditation and some time for prayer. Meditation is a spiritual practice which is really at the core of our guidance system. When you position yourself into a still place that only you can define, you will find that you have an opportunity to deepen your relationship with the divine. There's no lock on that door to move into the stillness with the allness of spirit, for we are all part of the one. Simply choose to be open and welcome at this time. Welcome to receive. Welcome to walk into and breathe into your highest and best. A time to open up and to take in. So allow me to guide you for this time for you. With your eyes closed or a soft gaze, thoughts will begin to come and go. Images will come and go. And then we simply choose to settle in, beginning by breathing in the breath of God and then breathing out the breath of God. Simply and softly, breathing in and breathing out, peacefully, safely, and then to notice what this time brings your way as you open to it. I have discovered a secret place within me where the thoughts go as mountain high above the din of the world. I have found in this mountain a place of peace and rest, a place of joy and comfort to the heart. I have found that the secret place of God is within my own soul. So I will listen for this voice. I will listen for thy voice, the inner presence. You will guide me and acquaint me with all knowledge. Your voice is sweet and tender. It is always kind and gentle. It fills me with peace and calm, and it soothes me as I listen to thee alone. breathing in the breath of God, breathing out the breath of God. God is breathing you. And then ever so gently, ever so slowly, as this time of stillness and listening comes to a close, become aware of you, the chair you sit in, the things around you, your thoughts, your feelings. Softly and slowly take your time and return to this service, to the loving people here, and know that we are all one in God. And so, look at this. We have evoked the loving grace of Spirit through our meditation. Look at this. Spiritual practice returns to us and returns us to the truth that we are the unique and divine expression of the life of God. God desires to express itself and has brought forth all that exists from before we entered this physical plane and on into eternity. There is no form not of God, and there is no place where God is not. This is God's gift to all life. Life lived in fullness, in, as, and through God's life. My heart says thank you for all the blessings of this service today. And I'm so thankful that God's good fills me with joy. And now we are open and ready with cheerful expectancy for this message today from practitioner Gary and all that unfolds from this moment. We have paused with Spirit, and we are positioned to learn and grow and deepen. My words are spoken and surrendered into the love and the law, and in the wonder of it all, I simply can say, and so it is right now.
And so it is. And now it is. Well, let's show some love for Jan Hartman and Reverend Sunshine for just leading us so gently, so lovingly through our first spiritual practices of our gathering today. Welcome to the Downey Center for Spiritual Living. I'm Reverend Kevin, and I'm delighted to be here. I'm delighted you're here with us as well. And with that, I will just share a couple of announcements with you. And as we've just experienced from practitioner Jan Hartman, she has a Wednesday morning gathering called Prac Chat. Wednesday, that's pretty good. It's a Wednesday morning gathering that occurs on Thursdays. But anyway, it's a Thursday morning gathering at 8:30 a.m. Pacific time. And she calls it God's Good Morning. And it's just a gathering of folks that Jan facilitates. And I encourage you all to join that every Thursday at 8:30. And you'll get more of what you just experienced from Jan Hartman. Today, after we fellowship, we are going to vision for our Downey Center for Spiritual Living. Everybody's invited to join us in that process. And inviting folks to a celebration of life for David James Hoffman, who is Reverend Judy's son. That celebration of life is occurring this coming Saturday at August 28th at 10:30 a.m. Pacific time. That is at 9812 Hamilton Avenue, Huntington Beach, and the zip code is 92646. So hopefully you can come and celebrate David's life and join us together there. And Reverend Judy is offering her Change Happens class. That begins September 13th and runs through November 1st. It meets on Zoom from 6 to 8:30 p.m. And her theme is changes everywhere and everything. Change is the seed of financial freedom. So I encourage you all to sign up for this class. It is a $100 investment, as Reverend Judy calls it, for 8 weeks of possibilities through change. And my favorite is register today. Space is unlimited. And I want to give a shout out and thanks to everybody who has come together to create this gathering for us today. So thanks to our practitioner of the day, Jan Hartman. Thanks to practitioner Gary Takasian for a magnificent message that I am eagerly awaiting. Thanks to those folks who are out looking after our live stream and interacting with our community that way. Thanks to our leadership council, who continues to do all the good work behind the scenes. Thanks to our music team, continually creating and growing and expanding our consciousness through music. And thanks to all of you for joining us here today. And I have the honor and pleasure of leading us in our next spiritual practice, which is we call giving as a spiritual practice. And I think, well, I know that just that activity of giving, that consciousness, that poise from which one gives, that occurs all the time. Now, what the spiritual practice does is it moves that consciousness deeper around giving, meaning hopefully every and any time I am giving, I'm infusing that giving with the qualities of generosity, the qualities of abundance, the qualities of participating in a connection or a circulation by that action, that activity of giving. So there are a number of ways that you can give to our spiritual community. That is that you can send your gift to 10,000 Paramount Boulevard, Downey, California, 90240. You could use your bill pay service through your bank, or you can use the donate button that I will put in the chat shortly after this, and that will take you to a spot where you can use your credit or debit card. And as is our custom, we like to say our statement of giving together, and we say this simultaneously in English and in English and in Spanish. I am going to choose English today. For those that want, you can unmute as we say our statement of giving together. So here goes with that consciousness of generosity and fulfillment and abundance. Abundance flows in my life. I am blessed with prosperity. I give with generosity. Yes. I tithe on faith, belief, with a consciousness of love. My gift is a divine circulation through me that now benefits and grows our spiritual community and beyond. And now it is. And I now invite Reverend Sunshine to introduce our speaker for the day.
It is with such a joy and honor and much waited anticipation to be able to introduce our practitioner, Gary Takasian, as the speaker for today. I've known Gary for over a decade. I'm not going to go any further than that, otherwise you'll know how old we are. But what I can tell you about Gary is that he is a true metaphysician. He is not someone who just simply settles for knowing something. He studies it and then he looks it up and then he contemplates it. He takes it into his prayer and meditation, and he really dives deeply into knowing our philosophy and our way of life for himself. Then he speaks from that place. I've known him to be a great teacher as well as an amazing practitioner. And today we get to experience Gary Takasian as our speaker. So because it's going to be like so, what I'd like us to do is first prepare ourselves, prepare our hearts and our minds to receive the message as we gently go into this song, as we prepare our hearts and minds and our ears and our consciousness and our awareness for Gary's message.
I'm walking in the Spirit, walking in the Spirit, walking in the Spirit, the Spirit of one God, loving in the Spirit, loving in the Spirit, loving in the Spirit, the Spirit of one God, moving in the Spirit, oh, moving in the Spirit.
Wow. I don't know. Thank you, Reverend Sunshine. That's humbling just to hear that. And welcome, everyone. I'm really glad to be with you. And, before I get started in the prepared talk today, I just wanted to acknowledge something that's been on my heart all week. And that is the situation in Afghanistan. Not to be a downer on this, but to just recognize and to be able to send our hearts out to the people there who have gone through so much in these past decades. And just seeing the images, because, we've known about this for, that we've been involved there for, for these past 20 years. But somehow you just can't unsee what's been going on. So just together, we just send our hearts out to them and send them our peace and our love. All right. On to the fourth Sunday of August, which our theme for this month is a pause for guidance. And this comes within our 2021 theme of timeless wisdom, evolutionary vision. And when I think about a pause for guidance, what comes to mind for me is a time to rest, some reflection, and perhaps even some regeneration for what comes next. It's an opportunity to go within and to seek divine presence. And if all this technology works, I'm going to share one quote from Science of Mind that Ernest Holmes gave us. And that is that we have discovered that which the great, the good, and the wise have sung about and thought about, the imprisoned splendor within yourself and within each other, and have direct contact with it. And I think part of what Ernest is pointing to there is some of the same stuff that Jan was talking about in that great meditation this morning that took us to that special place. It's something that we have discovered and is available to us at any time. So far this month, Reverend Sunshine has talked to us about a time for a tune-up, and that seems certainly appropriate when we look at this pausing for guidance. Reverend Kevin led us through a path of playful pause, a way that we can enjoy that refreshingness of gathering and playing together. And then last week, Reverend Sunshine showed us how a spark of imagination can give us new insights into our journey. And this week, I have the opportunity of exploring GPS, our guidance positioning system, or as some would say, our God positioning system. And I like this analogy because the GPS takes something that most of us are familiar with in one form or another, and it sheds light on the way that we can look into some of our Science of Mind practices. And just for the purpose of distinction, I'm going to refer to this as our inner GPS, because I would also like to talk for just a couple of minutes about our external GPS. And that is this wonderful scientific thing that we know of as our global positioning system, which was initially developed for guidance systems. And I got to thinking about that and was going, gee, what is the most elementary and primary purpose for this global positioning system? Well, those of us who use GPS on our smartphones might say, oh, it's so that I can get directions to go where I'm going. And yes, absolutely, that's true. But I think the most fundamental thing when we look at why that whole system was set up, it's to tell us where we are right now. And it's the basis for getting those directions. Because once we have the coordinates of knowing where we are, then we can go into our apps, whether it's Google Maps or, I tend to use Waze. And if I open up that app, there'll be a little blue dot that will appear right over my house because that's where I am today. And if I want to go somewhere else, like maybe the Sawdust Festival in Laguna Beach, which is going on right now, then I could go into Waze and I could tell Waze that's where I want to go. And Waze would figure out the coordinates of Laguna Beach, and it would then create the directions for me to go there. And I think that's just a marvelous thing that we can hold that in our hands and have that kind of direction. And one of the kind of side benefits of all that is that, those of us who have GPS, if we choose, we can have that direction, those directions spoken to us by, a voice within our phones. And I've changed mine around several times, but at the moment, my iPhone happens to have a British female voice. And it's kind of funny to drive along and have this voice go, in the next quarter mile, turn to the right. And I find that just, after hearing some of the regular ones, I kind of enjoy that. And in fact, we have this street that runs from Yorba Linda through Fullerton that is named, well, by the locals, we call it Bassinguri. And it has a silent T in it. And the first time that I had the GPS set up to go somewhere, it comes on and she goes, turn left on Bastanchuri. And so I kind of had to chuckle a little bit because I think that makes the ride a little bit more fun. But what happens in using our GPS? What happens if we make a wrong turn somewhere? What does the GPS do for us? Well, it gives us feedback so that we can make course corrections. All right, so I think you see where this is going. And our internal GPS works much in the same way. It can help us understand where we are right now spiritually. When we choose a destination, it can guide us along that chosen path. It can offer us course corrections when we stray from that current path. And when we connect to our internal GPS, we can quite often use one of what I'm going to talk today of as 3 of our various meditative spiritual practices that we can connect with when we connect to this GPS. And one of those, and Reverend Kevin just mentioned it, that we're going to do this afternoon, and that is visioning. And visioning is where when we achieve a meditative state, we ask a question, looking for what Spirit brings to mind. And in this process, we open ourselves up by asking this question and then waiting to see what impressions we get from Spirit. And we write those down as we get them, unfiltered, we don't go through and edit at that point. And then we go back and we see out of those impressions, what was Spirit speaking to us? Another one that we use is one that's called visualization. And visualization is very different from visioning, where in visioning, we ask this question. In visualization, it's about forming a mental picture of the desired outcome that we want and taking that into meditation. Ernest Holmes calls this creating a mental equivalent. And God bless Ernest for all of his terminologies. He really does come up with them. But he thought this was so important that he devoted an entire chapter in the Science of Mind text to mental equivalence. And if I can get to slide 2 here, we'll see what Ernest had to say about that. Let me get to my sharing of screen here. Always have the technical, don't we? All right, so here's what Ernest said about this. He said, our individual use of it can only equal our individual capacity to understand it, to embody it. We cannot demonstrate beyond our ability to provide a mental equivalent of our desire. And so what he's talking about here is being able to really focus in on this idea of creating our mental equivalent. And when we do that, we bring this picture into meditation, and this becomes the thing that we give life to, that we bring some real thought and real passion to bear on this particular item. And that is what we give to Spirit to work with. And then the third one is just a meditation that I sort of think of as without an agenda, simply communing with the divine, a time to simply be and to let the busyness of the day subside for a while. And if you've been around when I've done some of the meditations in service before, you'll be familiar with what I call the I am the mountain meditation. And this is the one where we say, I am the mountain, the sky is my consciousness, and the clouds are my thoughts passing by. And the whole purpose of this particular meditation is to be that mountain and to be able to know that those clouds are our thoughts, that we have those thoughts, but they're not us. We are not our thoughts. To be able to recognize that separation between the thoughts and us, and that we have the freedom to be in that sky, in that space of simply being with the divine. And we put aside all else that's going on by letting those thoughts pass by. So just like an external GPS, the signal from our internal GPS is there all the time. We use our various spiritual meditation practices to access all the features and what I think of as the settings. And we can receive guidance, though, throughout the day in the form of those little do this, not that type of feelings. Those are little nudges that, if we're paying attention, they help point us in a more helpful direction. I know that this internal GPS, which I know as my internal guidance system, has actually been with me for a long time, even before I knew Science of Mind. And it has led me in many different directions, and I think has saved me from making some colossal mistakes in life. But it's that thing that literally just gives us those nudges, those hints of direction, if you will, that move us in a particular way. So we've looked at how our internal GPS resembles our external and several ways that we can connect with it. But what I'd like to look at now are some of the details that can make our use of the internal GPS and our spiritual practices more effective. It's kind of a, maybe think of it as an under the hood look, or perhaps behind the scenes. And what I want to start with, and you'll have to bear with this for a moment, but this comes from the news this week as I was watching all of this horrible stuff going on in Afghanistan. There was a news program on where the host was talking to several of the commentators. And he asked one of them, he said, how is it that we could have this kind of ragtag group of people, about 75,000, completely take over a country with a population of over 37 million people, and have a government-backed security force of over 300,000 that was trained and supplied by the United States? You know, and just thinking of that before we even get to the next part of this is just somewhat overwhelming. And the commentator said, well, he said the Taliban had a deep conviction to their Islamic faith and how the world should be. Now, we may not agree with that, and I certainly don't, so don't hear this as being any way praising the Taliban. But what he then said was that the government forces had been together for a short time. They had no real passionate unifying force that was worth fighting for. And so the Taliban had this deep conviction for 20 years and maybe earlier, and the government forces didn't. And so when they were confronted by this small group of people, relatively, they laid down their arms and surrendered. And so I look at that and I think that has something for us as practitioners and students of Science of Mind. And that is that we need to bring this sense of deep conviction to our Science of Mind work, whether it's in affirmations, whether it's in treatments, whether it's, just in any types of our meditation. Because Ernest Holmes maintains in various places throughout the Science of Mind text that thoughts alone are not sufficient to produce the results that we desire. So our prayers and affirmations must be accompanied by a deep sense of feeling. He likened this to the biblical idea that faith without works is dead. And he said that the equivalent to that is that treatments without a deep sense of conviction are relatively ineffective. And so here's what Ernest said. Let's go take a look at slide number 3 here and see what he has to say. He says, the thought is a mold. Conviction is the molten substance poured into this mold. One is not complete without the other, and many people make the mistake of using only one of these essential states of consciousness. I want to say that one again because this one really speaks to me. The thought is a mold, but conviction is the molten substance that's poured into that mold. One is not complete without the other. And many people make the mistake of using only one of these essential states of consciousness. And I see that as just one of the most fundamental ideas that we can have in all of our spiritual practices. You know, when we think about pouring this molten substance into a mold, you know, it sort of takes me back to one of our trips to Hawaii when we were at Hawaii Volcanoes National Park and watching the molten lava as it flowed down and into the sea. And we know that this molten lava becomes solid rock. And I think that gives us some indication of when we take this passion, this deep sense of feeling into our work, it brings the manifestations to us. So in the same fashion, our prayers and our affirmations become highly effective when accompanied by a passionate desire and a profound connection with the divine. We need to bring this deep sense of feeling to bear on what we are seeking to change in one of these aspects of our lives. And another slide here, Ernest will tell us about how important this is. All right, come on now. There we go. He says, we must relight the torch of our imagination by fire caught from heaven. We must remain faithful to this vision, for a realization of the presence of God is the secret power of our work. And notice how Ernest talks about the torch of imagination and the presence of God, bringing both of those together and how important that is in our work. And this even harkens back to Reverend Sunshine's talk last week when she spoke about the spark of imagination. And we know that it only takes a spark to ignite a fire, or in this case, a torch. And here, Ernest is telling us the power in the torch is essential to our spiritual work. When we create a mental equivalent and meditate on it with the expectation of it manifesting what we desire, we need to infuse it with that deep, passionate feeling. The same is true in our affirmations. We must affirm our truth with an unwavering faith. And in our prayers, our spiritual mind treatments, nothing less is required than the fire of our conviction. Ernest Holmes confirms that power of conviction coupled with our faith in spirit in this quote from the Science of Mind text. He says, after using whatever words will bring conviction to our thought, we pause and try to realize the presence of the all-power from which every special good comes. This is adding the spirit to the letter of the law. However, we should never forget that both the letter and the spirit are necessary in our work. And what Ernest is talking about here is that same idea that the thought is the mold and the molten substance gets put in. One of them originates. I sort of think of this as a left brain, right brain kind of thing, where in the left brain, we form the thought, we form the ideas, we do the analysis. And then the right brain is that part where we have that deep sense of intuition, that deep sense of spirit, where we then bring those two together. And then the universe takes over and brings that into being. So, some questions for us to consider. What do you do to give yourself a break and feel closer to spirit? I know each of us has our different ways, and with our lives being so busy and hectic, they can become really, really involved. And I know that sometimes I get so involved that I can forget that that quiet place within is available as a place of peace and refuge. I do know that for me, I find that sitting down with my headphones and some soothing music to help quiet my mind brings me closer to the divine. And it also helps me to remember that all of those thoughts running around in my head are just the clouds passing by my mountain and the limitless sky above. So, what can you do to ignite the power of conviction in your spiritual work? It is worth considering that this week as you go about your life. So, what I would say is take time to log into your internal GPS. I like to think of it as a spiritual app that is free for us to use at any time we choose, and to know that doing so regularly will help keep us and in the busyness of life in the proper perspective to ground us in our spiritual life. And so let me just ask that we conclude this with a little time of centering prayer. So I would ask you to either close your eyes or have a light gaze and just join me in a time where we can just acknowledge this spirit, this power, this presence that surrounds us, that lives its life through and as each and every one of us. And it is that which creates. It is that which allows us to take thoughts and bring them into being through this power of taking that thought, pouring in the molten substance, and allowing the universe to manifest that in our thoughts. What an amazing idea. And it is there for our use. And so what I know today is that as we contemplate using that spiritual practice, that we know to bring that fire along with it, to bring that passion to bear, and to watch how spirit takes that and brings things into our life. And so for right now, I just give thanks for knowing those truths, for knowing all that spirit is capable of doing. How marvelous it is. And so now I will release this into that creative law, pouring this molten substance into that, knowing that it becomes manifest just as I've spoken it. And so I release this now into that law and just simply say, and so it is, and now it is. Amen.
And now it is. Everybody just take a breath. Thank you so much, Gary.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you, thank you, thank you. What a great opportunity to take this message and to incorporate it in our lives. A couple of the highlights that were so pertinent today. I love it. Gary, I told you. That's all I can say is I told you so. you know. So yeah, right? Recap. First we practice visioning. We asked to be inspired. What is God's grand divine idea? Right? And then we harvest it, and then we visualize it. We see ourselves in it, being it, living it, doing it. What? And then we take that same thing with an open mind just into our meditation. What a grand opportunity to do that. And then the way you broke it down, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Please hang out with us after service today. We're going to continue the conversation for about 15 or 20 minutes or so right before we engage in some visioning with our spiritual community. I want to let you know that if you're on Facebook or on Zoom, that you can go to our website, downeycsl.org, and grab the Zoom information so you can join us in on the conversation after the service. Know that you are loved. It's time for our last spiritual practice together in community, and that is to sing. Singing as in form of our prayer. So I want to invite you to just sing this song as if you're hearing it for the very first time. Know that you are loved, and we'll see you after service.
This is our prayer, a song of peace. We get to be the change we want to see. With open hearts and open hands, we lift our voices, in love we stand. This is our prayer, a song of peace. We get to be the change we want to see. With open hearts and open hands, we lift our voices, in love we stand. This is our prayer, a song of peace. We get to be the change we want to see. With open hearts and open hands, we lift our voices, in love we stand. We lift our voices, in love we stand. We lift our voices, in love we stand.
Go forth and prosper. Have a great day, everyone. Great job, Gary. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. It was a delight.
Yeah. Let's I know we're going to stop streaming in just a moment. It's done.